Hey everyone! Welcome back to the show. I'm Emma, and I'm super excited about today's topic. Daily English conversation at the intermediate level. We're going to unlock some secrets to help you sound more natural and confident. Hey everyone! Mike here. And yes, I'm buzzing about this too. A lot of learners get stuck at the intermediate stage. But it doesn't have to be that way. So, Emma, where should we start this conversation roller coaster? Okay, so I think the biggest hurdle for intermediate learners is moving beyond textbook phrases. We need to sound less robotic and more, well, human. What's your take on that, Mike? Absolutely. It's about transitioning from learning English to living in English. One key thing is active listening. It's not just about hearing the words, but understanding the nuances and responding appropriately. But how does that actually work in a conversation? Great question. Active listening means really focusing on what the other person is saying, not just planning your response. You can use phrases like, "That's interesting," or "Tell me more about that," to show you're engaged. Try to recap what they said to show you understand. For example, if someone says, "I had a terrible day because my train was delayed and then I spilled coffee all over my new shirt," you could say, "Oh no. That sounds like a really rough day." Single quote. That's a perfect example, Emma. And it also shows empathy, which is super important in building rapport. Here's a pro tip. Pay attention to body language too. Are they smiling? Frowning? That can give you clues about their mood and help you respond more effectively. Ooh, good point, Mike. Okay, so we're listening actively. We're showing empathy. What's next? What about those awkward silences that happen when you can't think of what to say? The dreaded awkward silence. Okay, here's the trick. Use filler words strategically. Like, you know. So, they buy you time to think without sounding completely lost, but use them sparingly. Too many fillers can be distracting. Right. And it's also about learning some stock phrases that you can pull out in a pinch. Things like, "That's a good question," or "Let me think about that for a moment." They give you breathing room without sounding clueless. Exactly. And another common pitfall is trying to translate directly from your native language. This often leads to unnatural sounding sentences. Focus on learning common English idioms and expressions instead. "Oh, tell me about it. I see that all the time. Can you give us an example, Mike?" Got it. Okay. So we're avoiding direct translations. We're using idioms. What about pronunciation? I know a lot of people struggle with that. Pronunciation is key. But don't aim for perfection. Focus on being understood. One simple trick is to record yourself speaking and listen back. It can be painful, but it's really effective for identifying areas where you need to improve. Oh gosh, I hate listening to my own voice. But you're right. It's super helpful. Another thing I've found useful is shadowing. Listen to a native speaker and try to mimic their intonation and rhythm. Like repeating after a podcast, or even just watching movies. That's brilliant. And don't be afraid to ask for feedback. Find a language partner or tutor who can give you constructive criticism. But, Emma, what about grammar? Isn't that important too? Of course. Grammar is crucial. But at the intermediate level, it's more about refining your existing knowledge than learning completely new concepts. Focus on avoiding common mistakes like using the wrong tense or incorrect word order. For example, confusing there, and there. Yes, those homophones can be tricky. And another common mistake is using much and many incorrectly. Much is for uncountable nouns, like water or time, and many is for countable nouns, like apples or people. Right. Okay. So we're focusing on grammar, pronunciation, active listening. This is a lot to take in. How can people put all this into practice in their daily lives? Mike: I love that. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. It's part of the learning process. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become. Here's a challenge. Try to have one English conversation every day for the next week. Even if it's just with a cashier at the grocery store. Ask them how their day is going. Small conversations count too. Excellent challenge, Emma. And remember, consistency is key. Even 15 minutes of practice a day is better than cramming for hours once a week. Think of it like going to the gym. You wouldn't expect to get fit after one workout, would you? Totally. So, to recap, we've talked about active listening, using filler words strategically, avoiding direct translations, improving pronunciation, and practicing consistently. Phew, that was a lot. Any other golden nuggets of wisdom you want to share? Mike: That's such a smart idea. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground today. But I'm sure people still have questions. What's one of the most common questions you get asked about daily English conversation? Mike: Yeah, immersion is key. Okay, another question I often get is, what if I make a mistake? Single quote. And my answer is always the same. So what? Everyone makes mistakes. Don't let fear of making mistakes stop you from speaking. Learn from them and move on. Exactly. And another common mistake is trying to be too perfect. Focus on communicating your message clearly, not on using perfect grammar. Most native speakers don't even use perfect grammar all the time. True. Okay, Mike. Final thoughts? What's the one thing you want people to take away from this episode? Perfect. And remember to be patient with yourself. Learning a new language takes time and effort. Don't get discouraged if you don't see results overnight. Just keep practicing and you'll get there. Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Emma, thanks for another fantastic conversation. Thanks, Mike. And thank you to everyone for watching. We hope you found this episode helpful. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And in our next episode, we'll be diving into the world of advanced English vocabulary. We'll be exploring some less common words and phrases that can really elevate your language skills. So stay tuned. Ooh, I'm already excited. See you all next time. Goodbye, everyone. Okay, so, we've talked about a lot of different aspects of daily English conversation. One thing I think is really important is to vary your vocabulary. Don't just keep using the same words over and over again. But how do you actually expand your vocabulary in a practical way? That's a great point, Emma. One of the best ways to expand your vocabulary is to read extensively. Read books, articles, blog posts, anything that interests you. And when you come across a new word, look it up in the dictionary and try to use it in a sentence. Yeah, context is key. Don't just memorize a list of words without knowing how to use them properly. And another thing I've found helpful is to use a spaced repetition system, like Anki, to review new words regularly. It helps you to retain them in your long-term memory. That's a fantastic tip. Spaced repetition is a game changer. And don't forget to actively use the new words you're learning in your conversations. The more you use them, the more natural they'll become. Totally. And don't be afraid to experiment with different words and phrases. See what sounds good and what doesn't. The more you play around with the language, the more confident you'll become. Okay, Emma, let's talk about dealing with different accents. It can be tough to understand someone who has a very strong accent, especially if you're not used to it. What are your tips for dealing with that? Absolutely. And try to focus on the key words in the sentence. Even if you don't understand every single word, you can often get the gist of what they're saying by focusing on the most important words. And try to expose yourself to different accents as much as possible. Watch movies and TV shows from different countries. Listen to podcasts with speakers from different regions. The more you hear different accents, the easier it will become to understand them. That's great advice. It's all about broadening your horizons and getting used to the diversity of the English language. Exactly. And remember, it's okay to ask for clarification. It's better to ask than to pretend you understand, and then get confused later on. So Emma, before we finish up, many intermediate learners struggle with slang and informal language. How should they approach this? That's a really important point. And be aware that slang changes rapidly. What's cool today might be totally outdated tomorrow. So stay up to date on the latest trends. Right. And don't be afraid to ask someone to explain a slang term if you don't understand it. Most people will be happy to explain it to you. Just be respectful and avoid using slang in formal situations. Another great point. It's all about using your judgment and being aware of your audience. Thanks for all these amazing tips today, Emma. My pleasure, Mike. And thanks again to everyone for watching. We hope you learned something new today. Happy English conversations.